Hey, good morning, everyone. Joshua Severe Weather. Happy Tuesday morning to you. I am a meteorologist in the Raleigh area. Been on YouTube since December of last year and been a degreed meteorologist for the past 20 years. And I'm going to share with you a look at what looks like it's going to be our strongest storm of the year, the next name on the list being Lee. And I think personally, there's a great chance this is going to be at least a Category 4 hurricane and a decent chance it's going to be a Category 5 hurricane, probably our strongest since Dorian in this part of the world. That, of course, was in 2019. Let me share my screen with you all and show you my first forecast of what I expect will be our next tropical depression here later in the day today, and then Tropical Storm Lee at some point later on tonight. As the storm organizes, it looks like it's in a favorable spot to intensify steadily and rapidly over the next few days up to Category 5 strength by the time we get to the early part of next week. Now you will see my track does have the system getting very close to Bermuda here next week. And then beyond that, a potential threat coming to New England, to Atlantic Canada. This certainly could still change, but we're starting to see some model agreement now on where the system is going to go. One thing that is for certain, it will be a hurricane. Another thing that looks pretty certain is that it'll be a major hurricane. After that, some details that we need to iron out here in the next few days. So right now in the Atlantic, we actually do not have a named active storm. We just have three areas of concern as the systems yesterday have now weakened below tropical depression strength and have lost their tropical characteristics. The area of greatest concern has a 100% chance of becoming a named system in the next 7 days and a 90% chance here in the next 2 days. This is AL 95 over the central Atlantic. Behind it, another wave is expected to move off of Africa and develop into our next tropical storm. The name on the list would be Margot, and that chance for development is just 20% for the next 2 days, but then 70% later this week into the weekend. And then the remains of Hurricane Franklin, which passed to the northwest of Bermuda, are expected to move into an area of warmer water and could potentially pick back up some tropical or subtropical characteristics to the east of the Azores and could impact Portugal and the Iberian Peninsula here later this weekend. But the chance right now is just 20% that gains some tropical characteristics once again. Not pictured on the map, but I will show you are the remains of Hurricane Idalia, which are still going to be impacting parts of eastern Nova Scotia here in the next few days as those remnants move northward. Here's a look at the crowded Atlantic, and we can see the remains of Idalia, 50-mile-per-hour subtropical, or I guess extratropical cyclone at this point. And then we've got what was Katia, which is now a remnant low, actually getting absorbed into this circulation, which is a non-tropical low. It's a kind of an upper level feature. And then up here, we do see the remains of Franklin, which will move down into this area and could gradually pick up a little bit more tropical characteristics, tracking in this direction towards the eastern Azores and towards Portugal, kind of going in between those two land masses. Excuse me. And then we do have AL 95, which I'm going to spend a lot of this video on talking about the future of it. That moved off of the African coastline here back on Friday and now has a great chance of becoming our next tropical system. In the Pacific, we do now have a new tropical storm, Jova, which is expected to be a major Category 3 hurricane, but you will see it is not going to be a threat to land, heading away from the Mexican coastline and then into cooler waters here over the eastern Pacific over the weekend. Elsewhere in the Western Pacific, we don't have any additional threats right now. We have what was Super Typhoon Haikui, which is now a remnant low, flooding out parts of China that came through the Taiwan area and actually stalled on the west side and then continued to weaken, making its second landfall yesterday. And then we also have a remnant low, which was once Typhoon Kirogi, just some rain coming for southern parts of Japan. So I'm not really going to spend any time on that. Here's a look at the Atlantic. And let me start circling for you guys so you can follow along at home here. This is the remains of Idalia here, no longer tropical. And you can see this system heading towards the Sable Island area off of Nova Scotia and is expected to impact eastern Nova Scotia here. And then we'll be turning away here later this week. So you can see that circulation heading in this direction. It's expected to make a hard right here towards the end of the week, passing just south of Newfoundland. The rest of the Western Atlantic, the Caribbean and the Gulf are extremely quiet, just the way we like it. A big area of high pressure aloft here, leading to hot temperatures across the mid-Atlantic as we get through extended summer here We're going to see hotter weather here across the Gulf Coast and Florida, and very dry weather resuming like we saw for much of the month of August. All of the action is going to be up across the upper Midwest here. We have severe weather moving into parts of the Canadian prairies. Rough storms last night across the Dakotas and Minnesota. We'll have additional storms later in the day today to keep an eye on here across the upper Midwest, and these will track eastward, and additional potential severe weather around the upper Great Lakes region here for tomorrow. All this moisture getting drawn northward by a lingering boundary, which is at this point just the periphery of this high pressure region here, and looking very good here for the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. Nothing to really be concerned with. In the Eastern Atlantic, that's where all the action is. Kind of hard to see on the edge of the earth here, but we've got what should be Hurricane Lee here getting better organized, and then coming off of Africa, what I think will be Tropical Storm and maybe Hurricane Margot as we get towards the weekend and next week. Here's the remains of Katia, still a circulation center, but you can see getting absorbed here by this upper level low here. Going to be picking up Katia here and not expected to redevelop at this time. And then way off in the Eastern Atlantic, we've got a system moving down in this direction. That is the remains of Franklin. Franklin was a wave that came across Africa and did not develop until it got down into here in the Eastern Caribbean. That came up through Hispaniola. It was wind sheared the entire time. Then when it got here, northeast of Hispaniola, it got into an area of low wind shear and strengthened very quickly into a strong Category 4, then passed to the north of Bermuda as a weakening major hurricane and became a remnant low up in here. Now you can see Franklin is kind of going full circle back down into this region in here. So quite the trek that he has taken here, but we will see no real major impact out of that. Here's the Western Atlantic. Here's the remains of Idalia. You can see circling south of this island here. This is Sable Island. It is going to track up towards Nova Scotia. That is the infrared. Otherwise, we're looking pretty quiet. Down in the Central Atlantic, you can see our upper level low and the remains of Katia on the northern edge of the screen, and then our growing Invest 95L, a very large storm, one that does not have a low level center just yet that is organized. But you can see once it does form that low-level center, it's already got a very good outflow channel, a very good area to grow into what should be a very significant long-track hurricane. And you can see that on the map over here. That is 95L. And you can see just a large area, big circulation here, taking up almost 10 degrees of latitude here. The low-level center is somewhere down in here, but still a bit too broad for it to become a tropical depression. But I do think once we see more development here towards the center, we will have a quickly evolving storm into a tropical storm and likely a hurricane in probably 36 hours, just to be honest with you guys. Now we've got our next wave coming off of Africa. Models do show it developing in this area and here into Margot, generally tracking in this direction and not going to be a threat to land. And we've got another wave in West Central Africa that we're going to keep an eye on after that. Right now, models do not really show that developing into anything significant, but we're keeping an eye on it in case it does become Nigel. Here's a look at Invest 95L. You can see just a massive area of showers and thunderstorms. The only thing right now that this system is lacking is a tight core. It's got kind of a broad circulation. Until that happens, we don't see it developing very rapidly, but we do see some gradual development here. Now, as we get into the next say 24 hours, we will start to see more of a low-level circulation form. And once that happens, the storm has a very good chance of developing rapidly. So it's just missing this one final piece to the puzzle, and that's the actual low-level center. But once that happens, we will see a storm that intensifies very quickly due to the fact that it's over very warm water here. So here's a look at the ensemble forecast, and you can see right now very good agreement that this system is going to take a west-northwesterly path, and it will come close to the northern Leeward Islands, but will not make a direct impact. A couple days ago, there were several ensemble members that had a southerly track here that would bring tropical storm conditions into the Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, and maybe Puerto Rico. Well, that idea is off the table at this point. We're going to see too far of a track to the north for those islands to get a direct impact. And you can see here on the ensembles, this is Tomer Berg's page here, that we've got some really good agreement here over the next 54 hours. Just everything is tracking, in a very predictable fashion. Then when we get towards the weekend, towards Saturday, a little bit more spread here in the models, but still pretty much all of them taking it to the north of the Leeward Islands. We do see, obviously, we start to get to that spread where we see more uncertainty, but still overall the pattern tracks here, except for the UK Met, but the GFS, the European, and the ensemble means are all pretty much in the same neighborhood here by the time we get to next Monday. So very good agreement at this point. Hard to say that this would change much, but certainly that's a possibility. Let me get myself down out of the way here. And then as we head into next week, around next Tuesday and Wednesday, we see a turn to the right. Now, as this turn to the right occurs, it does put Bermuda under the gun here as potentially getting hit by a third straight storm. You can see here on the map, let me circle it for you guys. But this is Bermuda right here, and you can see a large number of ensembles making that right turn towards Bermuda. So the system could come within 100 or 200 miles of Bermuda as a very strong storm. There's still a few ensemble members that show this coming closer to the Turks and Caicos, and there's a few as well that go to the right of Bermuda, but taking the average, we are likely to see the storm in this general direction. So pulling away from Puerto Rico and moving over very warm water in here where it should be a powerful storm, and then potentially threatening Bermuda after that. Here's a look at all of our ensemble tracks from the GFS. I'm not going to say great agreement, but pretty good agreement. This is going to make that right turn and recurve at this point. And the unfortunate part for Bermuda is that you're right in the path of that recurve. The European ensemble members also show not only decent agreement that the storm is likely going to make this turn here, but again, a threat to Bermuda. Here's Bermuda on the map here, and you can see not only the control, but the deterministic and the ensemble mean all go in this direction just to the west of Bermuda. The other thing I want to point out to you guys here, if you look at these numbers on the right, we see, and just of the 50 ensemble members that are running, all of them have at least a Category 3 hurricane. When you look at these numbers, except for '05 over here, so I shouldn't say all of them, but 49 out of 50 of these show 950 millibars or lower, pretty much, which would be major hurricane strength. The control model has a 913 millibar hurricane. Deterministic has 915, and the mean 938. What this is showing is that a good majority of the solutions are showing at least a Category 3 hurricane. The control and the deterministic are showing a Category 5. And we do have ensemble members as low as 909 millibars, 902 millibars, 907 millibars. All of these are not just Category 5, but strong Category 5 hurricanes. So there's a very good chance somewhere in this area here, we've got our strongest hurricane in 5 years, since Hurricane Dorian was a strong Category 5 over here in the northern Bahamas. So a very good chance here that we are predicting a powerful hurricane, and a very good chance we see a bend to the right, which would fortunately take things north of the Leeward Islands and unfortunately take them more towards Bermuda. Now we see several tropical models showing at least a high-end Category 3 hurricane, quite a few Category 4, and at least 2 showing Category 5. This is why I'm predicting this will be a Category 5. I've studied these models and how they perform, and generally speaking, they are a little bit too low on intensification. You can see here from the ship's forecast, there is a greater than 25% chance that in 3 days, this storm intensifies by a minimum of 75 miles per hour. So very likely we've got just a very quickly strengthening storm. You can see the maximum potential intensity in knots is 175 knots. That's 200 miles per hour. I don't know if it's going to be that strong, but certainly 170 to 180 is in the realm of possibility, putting it very close to Hurricane Dorian strength. And if you remember on the East Coast, Hurricane Isabel was kind of in that realm back in 2003. Very low wind shear. You can see the wind shear here gets down to just a few knots in the next few days. Because of that low wind shear, because of sea surface temperatures at or above 84 Fahrenheit, and because of the fact that the relative humidity in the mid-levels is 65% or higher, all of those go into the formulation of the fact that this storm is going to be an intense hurricane. Here's a look at the sea surface temperatures, and right now we've got, I'm not going to put the spotlight on, I'm actually going to draw here. We've got the system that is probably somewhere in here over, let me change that color for you guys here. I'll try to anyway. There we go. Right in here, okay, bad choice. We'll do blue. Right in here over 29 degree water, which is 84 Fahrenheit. The storm is expected to continue to go over water temperatures in the middle 80s and then into the upper 80s by the time it gets into here. In this area in here, with a strong amount of moisture and a low amount of wind shear, water temperatures 85, 86, 87 degrees, I think the storm is going to go to town here and rapidly intensify in this area in here. Bermuda is right here. Water temperatures there are down to about 81, 82. West of Bermuda, they're a little cooler due to Franklin. But I think the storm is going to peak in this area in here due to the fact that there's just going to be really no wind shear, no significant wind shear, and very warm waters. By the time the system gets up into this area here, it does have a chance of weakening, possibly down to Category 3 or even Category 2. But at that point, a very large storm system. And at that point, we're just dealing with internal processes like eye wall replacements and things like that. So very, very good storm fuel here for this storm to strengthen quickly. The other question mark is going to be where it ends up going and what's in place in the upper levels. You can see high pressure ridge here over the north central Atlantic, a bit of a weakness in here. That should allow this system to get tugged a little bit farther north. We look at the eastern United States this weekend and we see this trough digging all the way down into the Carolinas and Florida. That is going to help weaken the ridge a little bit and allow this system to make a right turn. It no longer looks like it's going to come in and hit the Carolinas from the southeast, and rather it's going to make a northward turn. Now, the interesting thing here is that we've got high pressure rebuilding over Atlantic Canada next Tuesday and Wednesday, and another trough dropping down into the Great Lakes. How strong this gets will dictate how far west the system may try to get. And the GFS model has been showing that this trough is going to be far enough to the south and east to try to pull the system a little bit more westerly than northeasterly. So rather than becoming a total fish storm and turning away from Atlantic Canada, it's got some sort of a pull back a little bit more to the west northwest or to the north northwest. And so if you're in Atlantic Canada and if you're in eastern New England, you've got to watch where this trough is going to be by the 14th and 15th. 10 days from now, we may have a system that could still be a hurricane impacting this portion of North America. So where this trough ends up going is going to, of course, determine the eventual path of the system. And with this being 10 days away, there's still going to be a lot of uncertainty. So even though the model shows this, I will show you that the run before, while it wasn't pretty good agreement, the model run before was not. It had the system much slower and had this upper level feature much weaker over Canada, over central parts of Canada and eastern Ontario. I'm going to see the latest model run here, just getting out here, has it going just west of Bermuda right here, and continuing on a northerly path, but you can see it's at the same longitude as down east Maine here. So we really do have to watch this if we're in Maine and eastern New England. I don't think the mid-Atlantic down to Florida do have to worry about this system here. Here's a look at the European, and you can see the pressure is going to drop quickly here as the system develops tonight down to 1,005 millibars, and then tomorrow down to 1,001 millibars, tomorrow night into the 990s, Thursday into the 980s, Thursday night dropping into the 970s, Friday dropping into the 960s, Friday night dropping into the 950s, that's Category 3 strength, Saturday dropping into the 940s, Category 4 strength, Sunday dropping into the 930s, high Category 4 strength, and into the 920s and possibly 9 teens after that into early next week. We'll zoom in here and take a look at the European. And now we're into range here. 950s here over the weekend, Category 3 strength, then low 950s, Category 4 strength on Saturday, 930s, high Category 4 strength on Sunday, and then 920s to perhaps 9 teens, Category 5 strength on the night of the 11th and morning of the 12th. After that, the storm will weaken as it moves over the wake of Hurricane Franklin, probably down to Category 3 by the time it threatens Bermuda. Here's a look at the islands and what winds we can expect. And here's the great news for you guys. You see the massive storm track here, but you see these winds in the green, which are 40 miles per hour or higher. They just don't really make it close enough to be a direct impact to the Virgin Islands or the Northern Leeward Islands. And according to this run of the European, your wind gusts, if you're on, St. Croix or St. Martin or Antigua, are not going to get past 30 miles per hour. It's dangerous. The surf is going to be nasty, but it's going to remain to your north, fortunately here. Here's a look at the storm track and where it's going to carve some strong winds. You can see it's going to continue to grow here early next week and then makes that right turn. This is Bermuda right in here. And you can see towards the middle of next week, we could potentially have tropical storm or even hurricane conditions on the island of Bermuda. I'd say by next Thursday. Here's Bermuda, and you can see the wind gusts as this storm comes in your direction up to 40 miles per hour on the morning of the 14th, and then up to near hurricane force by the afternoon of the 14th. And according to the European model, we could be dealing with wind gusts as high as 110 miles per hour just to the west of Bermuda and 90 to 105 miles per hour on Bermuda. But again, until we know exactly where their storm goes, if it shifts 100 miles west or east, this is going to change. Here's a look at the HAFS. You can see it's got wind speeds up to 167 miles per hour by the middle of the weekend. Down here is Puerto Rico, so it will be about 300 miles northeast of these islands, but it is showing Category 5 intensity. The HWRF is also showing a very quickly strengthening storm down in here. You can see it's going to grow on Friday to a hurricane, a major hurricane Saturday into Sunday. And then here's the system behind it, Margot, which could also be a hurricane or at least a strong tropical storm. But that one is turning away to the north and east. And then we look at the longer term forecast. This is Idalia, by the way, still a non-tropical feature, but one with some stronger wind. You can see it's going to loop back south and east of Nova Scotia on Thursday and then die over Newfoundland on Friday morning. And then we're watching Bermuda down in here early next week, and we see the track of very powerful Hurricane Lee, Category 3 strength here by next Tuesday night. The GFS is farther west than the Euro by about 100 miles, but still has us in the danger zone here in Bermuda next Wednesday, and then continuing a northerly track towards Atlantic Canada and Maine by the time we get to next Thursday and Friday. So this is the 0Z GFS. The 6Z, I don't think... Okay, the 6Z is a little bit farther south and west and has a direct hit on Atlantic Canada on southwestern Nova Scotia Thursday night and Friday of next week. So let's take a look at storms that were similar to this. This is Fabian. You can see it made a hard right and tracked right over Bermuda. It was up to Category 4 intensity. I think this one ends up being a Category 5. But this could be very similar in track to Hurricane Fabian, with the exception being, I don't think it makes a hard right like this and escapes Atlantic Canada. That certainly is a possibility, but I don't see it happening just yet. Here's Luis from 1995. This one came through the Virgin Islands and northern leewards. I don't think ours will, but it was a Category 4 hurricane that got to the west of Bermuda and then turned away and hit Newfoundland. Now we see Hurricane Isabel, which was a Category 5 in here, but that one continued northwest and hit North Carolina and Virginia. I don't think that's going to be the case with this one, but it's coming through the same areas at the same time of year and has the same water temperature profile, but I think ours is turning this direction here. And then Hurricane Fran never got to Category 5. It was actually a 3. That system was much weaker here, and because of that, it was able to go more westerly before making the turn. Stronger storms typically make more of a right turn. Weaker storms typically don't. Obviously, there's some exceptions to that rule, but these are the 4 systems that I look at analogs for. Now, in the Pacific, we do have Tropical Storm Jova. Will probably be a major hurricane here on Friday, not a threat to land. As you can see, that system is also growing pretty significantly in size and not expected to be a problem here. I'm just showing it to you guys. Maybe a high-end Category 3, possibly even a Category 4 in about 72 hours, and then weakening after that. And here's the wide view again. You guys can take a look here at Haikui, and you can see it's already weakened, kind of below tropical depression strength. So that's all. I will keep you guys posted. I think we will have a tropical depression this afternoon and a tropical storm overnight tonight. By the time I do this video tomorrow morning, I do expect we'll have Tropical Storm Lee. And then at that point, I think we see a beginning of a rapid intensification phase that could take the system from tropical depression to Category 4 in a matter of 72 hours, which is very impressive. So I appreciate y'all's time today. Please consider subscribing if you're new here or if you've watched the last few videos. I also have a membership channel if you want to show your support, if you feel led to do that. $9.99 a month. I will be in the slower months, especially providing you guys with more content relevant to what you need and responding to your comments faster as well. I really appreciate y'all's time. I thank you for your support. Happy to answer any questions you have. And as always, I want to give all the glory to God through his son, Jesus Christ, who has given me the strength and has called me to do this to help save lives and to prepare folks for really nasty weather. I can't do it without God. I believe he created all of us. And I will tell you all, it was nice having a few days off, but the weather never stops and I never really take a break. And I like to be encouraged by reading the Holy Bible to you all. I want to read to you Isaiah 40:31 from King James version. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not be faint. I know a lot of us got to enjoy the day off yesterday, but we feel like we're working harder and harder and harder than ever before, and that it's tiring and that it makes us weary. What I want to encourage you to say is that the prophet Isaiah said, the Lord will renew your strength no matter what you're going through. He will provide you with strength. He has given his son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross for us to live eternally with him in the holy kingdom. And we will be renewed with strength then. In the meantime, we're going to be going through challenges and tests that will, I believe, strengthen us eternally, even though they may not appear that way. So I would love to pray for you and over you if you are dealing with any kind of stage in your life where you feel your strength needs to be renewed. I, of course, will never be able to give you that strength, but I believe talking to God will allow him more into your life and allow him to give you the strength that you really need. So I really appreciate y'all's time today. I hope you all have a blessed day, and we'll talk again tomorrow morning. See you then.